What's good, YouTube? Welcome back. Thank you for clicking onto this reaction. I hope you're looking forward to it just as much as I am. If you haven't already, head over to the content creators page. That link is in the description box down below. If you haven't already and you're enjoying our content, you know what you need to do. You need to like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell, but we're going to jump straight into this one. Okay, Battle of Keresztes, 1596 AD, Part 1. Ottoman Superpower clashes with Europe. Let's go.
It is the waning years of the 16th century. Despite being nominally at peace since 1568, the borderlands of the Habsburg and Ottoman domains are still subject to constant raids.
Nice. This is literally a, like maybe what? 70 years later, roughly?
And small-scale conflict.
Or 80
Given that
years
this
later.
period of supposed peace between the two empires was commonly referred to as the Little War, it was clear that the resumption of large-scale military campaigns was ultimately inevitable. Although both empires had recently signed a 9-year peace treaty in 1591, any hope that it can be maintained was shattered in the summer of 1592.
How many peace treaties go like that, really, though? Most of them, you know?
And the prospect of war became an imminent reality. Without a declaration of war, the Ottoman Beylerbey of Bosnia, Hasan Pasha, led an army of 20,000 Janissaries and attacked Croatia.
They're the Janissaries, the paid troops that are obviously skilled at musketeers, but the main thing is they're sort of trained and paid by the leader. Is that correct?
Laying siege to the fortress of Sisak. While the Croatians managed to repel the Ottomans, they were unable to prevent the capture of the crucial fortified border city of Bihać. Hasan Pasha again attempted to capture Sisak the following year, in 1593, with a force of around 15,000. This time, however, he was decisively defeated by a 5,000-strong Croatian, Slovenian, and German relief army. The Ottomans suffered nearly 8,000 casualties.
8,000 casualties.
Among those killed was Hasan Pasha himself, the Sultan's nephew Mehmed, and 6 other beys.
Some big names were lost in that. How unfortunate.
When news of the defeat reached Constantinople, the Ottoman nobility, urged on by the Sultan's sister, called for war.
As you would, as anyone would.
Despite the attack being in direct violation of current Ottoman interests and policies, Sultan Murad III felt obliged to retaliate.
Perfect, thank you very much.
He deemed the defeat far too embarrassing to ignore. Accordingly, Sultan Murad III declared war on the Holy Roman Emperor Rudolf II, and the two superpowers of the era began preparing for a confrontation that would decide the fate of Central Europe for centuries to come. Thus, the long Turkish War had begun.
It says long. How long did it last?
By understanding the threats that the Ottomans posed to Christian dominance in Europe, Pope Clement VIII re-established the Holy League in 1594. It consisted of a series of military alliances between various European powers, all united under the goal of driving the Ottomans out of Europe.
Seems like the main people who were a part of this alliance is the people on the borders, and you can see sort of Spain and don't know what it's called during that era of time. It's like Belgium and like the Netherlands, right? They're all sort of the ones sort of have a problem with the Ottoman Empire, hence the reason they've signed the treaty. I'd imagine Spain is sort of having a lot of problems on the seas with the Ottoman Empire, hence why they've joined into this treaty,
and for all.
is what I'm sort of trying to say.
The coalition included both Catholic and Orthodox nations. Of its members, Wallachia, Transylvania, Moldavia, and the Serbs of Banat had all been formerly under Ottoman rule and were now in open rebellion. The Serb uprising, which had begun in March, had expected to receive more support from the Allies. When it failed to materialize, however, the rebellion was ultimately defeated by July of the same year.
That's a problem, because that's going to put a damper on everyone else, and they're not going to be as willing to revolt if you're not going to support them, right?
In terms of military objectives for the war, the Ottoman army looked to seize Vienna, while the Habsburgs aimed to unite their Hungarian territories. In support of their Austrian relatives, the Spanish Habsburgs dispatched a force of 6,000 infantry and 2,000 cavalry from the Netherlands, under the command of Karl von Mansfeld. In January of 1595, Sultan Murad I died of natural causes. The situation quickly...
Actually rare someone dies of natural causes. Normally it's some kind of assassination or something.
Quickly began to worsen for the Ottomans throughout the year. Forced to fight on two fronts, in Wallachia and Hungary, they suffered defeats against the likes of Mihai the Brave at Calagureni and Giurgiu, and at Esztergom against Karl von Mansfeld. These victories did not leave the Christian cause unscathed, however, as von Mansfeld was wounded during the siege and died shortly afterwards. As his replacement, Emperor Rudolf II appointed his own brother, the inexperienced Archduke of Austria, Maximilian III.
The fact he's inexperienced, does that come into play? I'm looking forward to finding out.
However, despite this setback, the Austrian forces continued on to capture the castle of Hatvan in August of 1596.
Nice.
It is said that after the garrison had capitulated, every Ottoman, including women and children, was slaughtered by the Austrian troops.
That's just going to cause problems. They're just going to hate you, and they're just, mistakes.
In the same month, the Ottomans launched a massive offensive under the personal command of the new Sultan himself, Mehmed III. Sources vary significantly on the size of the Ottoman force, with some putting the figure as high as 1 million. It is speculated that Mehmed III's army was larger than the host led by Suleiman the Magnificent 30 years prior, which had numbered around 100,000. As such, historians have generally estimated...
Okay, it was larger. Holy. How's the Habsburg Empire going to deal with this?
Estimated the figure to range anywhere from 100,000 to 150,000, in addition to 170 cannons.
Ah, so it's less cannons though.
The Ottoman army of this period was in desperate need of modernization, composed mostly of light cavalry.
So in the last video, it seemed like they were sort of, they were quite. What's the word I'm looking for? Mobilization on technology. They just didn't have as good technology, and it seems like they had the better technology back then. Now they didn't move with the times. I don't know why I'm struggling. I do apologise. I'm not a metal, I swear.
It is estimated that the infantry arm made up no more than 20% of the army's total fighting strength. It is also important to note that the army did not have any heavy cavalry. The only unit possessing firearms was an elite corps of 32,000 janissaries, with the rest of the army still being equipped with cold weapons.
And how... what are the Habsburg Empire equipped with? What are their men equipped with? I'm looking forward to finding out.
The Ottoman host moved slowly, not only due to its size, but also because the Sultan still hadn't determined the goal of the campaign. Upon reaching the Danube, he convened a war council with his commanders. Because the offensive had begun 3 months later than planned, they concluded that attacking Vienna was unfeasible this late in the campaigning season.
What's he going to do?
Still with no military objective and unsure in which direction to take the army, some proposed...
How are you going to start any kind of offensive without an objective? You got to have an objective first and then be able to make your plan. This is absolutely stupid. Like, I can't believe that they've decided to go in like this and with no goal and no idea of what it is that they want to be doing. Absolutely crazy.
Besieging the castle of Komarome, arguing that its capture would secure the Danube frontier. However, many nobles opposed this suggestion, believing that the castle was too small and did not deserve to be besieged by the Sultan. After some debate, the council decided on a target more worthy of being captured by their leader. Thus, the Ottoman war machine began moving towards the important border fortress of Eger. Because of its location, Eger acted as one of the primary links between the allied Habsburg and Transylvanian lands.
So you're trying to cause a web.
The Ottoman commander...
But the problem with causing that web is you would then be able to get pincered and then sieged on both sides by two different opposing forces, right? Unless you're not going to keep it.
The Allies' ability to effectively communicate and supply one another.
That's just proof of point.
Maximilian III, who was still encamped at Hatvan, managed to send a small detachment to reinforce the castle's garrison, raising the number of defenders to around 4,000.
That it.
The Sultan's army arrived around Eger's walls around September 21st of 1596. Despite its importance and having just received reinforcements, the border fortress was gravely unprepared for a siege and had little hope of repelling the Ottoman tide. When Maximilian III realized the size of the Ottoman host, the Archduke retreated to
hightailed it out of there. He was not having none of it. Fuck dealing with that force. How many men you got? I'm outie. I'm gone.
What is strange, however, is that, possibly due to his inexperience, Maximilian III did not immediately begin mobilizing the rest of his forces to relieve Eger. It wasn't until October the 4th, nearly 2 weeks later, that the Archduke finally began to take action and make his way towards the border fortress.
Oh.
Mustering what additional forces he could while on the move, Maximilian III also sent word to his commanders to gather their troops and join him in relieving Eger. Additionally, Sigismund Bathory, the Prince of Transylvania, offered his assistance, which the Archduke accepted.
Okay.
Bad weather and poor roads caused even more delays.
How unfortunate.
The constant autumn rain made many of the mountain paths impassable, as the dirt roads turned into thick mud. This made travel exceedingly difficult, especially for a large army with a large baggage train. Both men and animal were left behind in large numbers, either due to fatigue, hunger, disease, or combination of the three.
So how many men of Maximilian III are going to be left after this march?
Some sources have suggested that the Archduke may have lost up to a third of his army during this difficult march.
No, answers my question. A third of his men.
Eger's garrison surrendered on October 13th, the siege having lasted just over 3 weeks. In retaliation for Hatvan, the Sultan ordered every captured Austrian to be executed, while sparing the Hungarian units in the garrison.
Okay. It's not great, because he's doing the same sort of thing, but he did only target the people of the ethnicity that caused the atrocity to them, to his people, which is understandable. Not correct, not justifiable, but reasonable and understandable. You can see how he's made that decision. So yeah, I get it. And then the fact that he's let the Hungarians go, he shows that sort of mercy and shows that it's only retaliation. That's an interesting point, I think.
Upon learning that Eger had fallen, Maximilian III held a war council to determine the army's next move. It is here that we should take the time to introduce the leadership of the Allied Christian forces. While Archduke Maximilian III was commander-in-chief, due to his lack of military experience, a council was established to help lead the army. The most experienced commanders were Adolf von Schwarzenberg and Miklos Palffy.
These are the two most
Schwarzenberg,
experienced.
a renowned general and field marshal of the Austrian army, was responsible for most of the tactical and strategic planning. Count Palffy led the troops from Royal Hungary and had significant experience in fighting against the Ottoman style of war, having done so all his life.
So that's going to be valuable if he's got the experience to fighting against the enemy. That's so vital and so valuable.
In command of the units from Upper Hungary was Captain Christoph von Tiefenbach. The Transylvanians were led by Prince Sigismund Bathory, with the mercenary captain Albert Karai commanding the prince's largest contingent.
Mercenary? Where is it? So is he a mercenary from... Prince of Transylvania. There you go. Okay, I'm with you.
It is generally accepted that the Christian force numbered around 40 to 50,000, with 97 cannons. It included troops from all over Europe, with its largest contingent being supplied by Austria, Germany, Royal Hungary, Upper Hungary, Transylvania, and Silesia.
How many of the men speak the same language, though? Because that could be an issue.
Much of the army was equipped with firearms, and at least half of the army was composed of infantry.
Okay, that answers my question from earlier as well. Seems like a lot of these men will be having firearms instead of cold weapons, which is how this video sort of used the terminology for swords, I believe.
While the Allies had fewer cannons, these were of higher quality than those of the Ottomans. In addition to their advantage in modern weaponry, the Christian forces had complete supremacy in terms of heavy cavalry as well.
And we all know that even in these times, heavy cavalry were just overpowered and so useful.
After some discussion, the Christian commanders determined the best course of action would be to retake Eger.
Yeah, understandable. There, I get it.
They assumed that it would likely be too damaged after the recent siege to mount any meaningful defense.
That's it. And even if even if the damage is only minor, there's only so much that they're going to be able to do to rebuild that damage.
Further believed that the terrain around Eger would further prevent the Ottomans from utilizing their superior numbers effectively. However, unsure of what the Ottoman plans were, they agreed to wait near the fields of Keresztes due to its defensible position.
Okay.
The Ottomans, at this point, still did not know the strength of the Allied Christian force.
So they come out to face them on the field of battle?
Opposing them. Given the size of the Sultan's host, he did not take the threat seriously. He detached a force of around 15 to 20,000, consisting of Rumelians, Tatars, and Janissaries, along with 43 cannons, under the command of Jafar Pasha.
So it's not even the full force. He's not even sending the full force, it's a contingent. Oh no, this is a mistake. This is a mistake.
Jafar Pasha, by many accounts, appears to have been an experienced and reliable commander. It is also worth mentioning that there is still some speculation as to why this force was sent.
Ooh. Was there discontent with these warriors? And was he trying to get rid of them, maybe?
Sources state that the Sultan had ordered Jafar Pasha to ambush the Christian camp during the night. This appears to be the most likely. However, it is also suggested that the force may have been sent to gather information about the strength of the opposing Christian army, rather than to confront it.
I might be wrong there.
The opposing army
does seem like they have the men spare if they need any reinforcements.
To the west of the village lay the Kachi stream, with only 2 points suitable for a crossing, due to the swampy terrain that ran along either side of the stream. The village itself, along with many others in the area, had been destroyed during the siege of Eger.
So they thought they could just go straight through it.
Having arrived slightly before the Christians with his army, had already ordered the Rumelian cavalry to cross the stream. He left his Tatar auxiliaries, janissaries, and cannons in position to support from the opposite bank. In order to further strengthen his position, he had the only bridge in the area dismantled.
He's really just going for that defensive position on this front then.
While the area underneath the bridge was still fordable, it would make any attempt to cross in force much more difficult. The Ottoman commander hoped to use his cavalry to lure the Christian forces into the range of his rifles and artillery.
Okay.
This tactic of feigned retreat had long been the favorite of the Ottomans, very effective against European troops due to their heavy armor.
Yeah, that does
However,
make sense.
having received information gathered by their spies and through interrogating prisoners,
I'm
the
looking
Christian
forward to it,
army
like-
was aware that a force had been sent against them. Knowing that the Ottoman army was somewhere in the vicinity, they marched
sent
in battle
scouts.
formation and were ready for a quick response. Late in the afternoon of October 22nd, 600 forward riders of the Christian army made contact with the Ottoman vanguard near the ruined city of Keresztes. Albert Karai, who was with the Transylvanian vanguard, quickly sent 300 lancers in support. Still heavily outnumbered, however, the forward riders sent for further reinforcements.
Okay.
Schwarzenberg moved quickly, bringing with him around 10,000 Austrian and German riders,
Are they going to fall
in
for the
addition to the
trap?
full Transylvanian vanguard. Palffy followed close behind as well, with a large number of Hungarian hussars. As Schwarzenberg's cavalry were about to engage, the rest of the Christian army also progressed towards the battlefield. The Rumelian cavalry, who had up to this point been holding their own, began to flee.
This is where the
Fortunately for
cannons
them,
come.
The Janissaries were able to cover their retreat, keeping the chasing Austrian and Hungarian riders at bay with rifle fire. The Rumelians, however, did not regroup on the opposite bank, but rather continued to flee from the field.
Oh! Oh no! Oh no!
As the Hungarian and Transylvanian infantry began to arrive, a fierce firefight ensued as they exchanged gunfire with the Janissaries across the stream. Up until this point, the Ottomans were yet to activate their artillery.
The whole point of using the cavalry, do a feign retreat, get the cannons to fire is pointless. You've wasted your time, you mugs.
Now, unable to retreat due to the proximity of the Christian forces, they realized that their only hope of surviving was to hold back the Christian tide.
Oh, this is such a fuck up.
They unleashed their 43 cannons.
They start hitting their own men.
In response, the Christian light infantry quickly spread out among the ruins of Keresztes and continued to return fire across the stream. Schwarzenberg ordered 6 cannons to be brought up in order to help force the way across the ford. With some artillery support, Albert Karai rallied his troops and again made an attempt to cross, only to be forced back by intense and concentrated Ottoman fire. Due to the narrowness of the ford, it was clear that the Christians will not be able to cross without sustaining extreme casualties. The Transylvanian captain instead decided to look for another suitable point to traverse the stream. He was able to find one further north, bringing with him 800 of the elite blue uniform personal guards of the Transylvanian prince, along with some 500 cavalry. The Transylvanian captain formed his men on a small hill, overlooking the Ottoman left flank. He ordered his troops not to engage until the entire force was in position.
And they haven't noticed. This is such a fiasco.
When the order was finally given, hundreds of rifles roared into the unsuspecting Ottoman flank, throwing both Janissary infantry and Tatar cavalry into confusion. Looking to further exploit the chaos, the Transylvanian captain ordered his entire force to charge.
That's it. That's it. They're encircled now, right? There's nothing they can do.
The Christian cavalry made first contact, driving into the Ottoman ranks, who were still reeling from the initial rifle volley. It was at this point that the Tatar auxiliaries fled, leaving the infantry to their fate. At the same time, the Christian forces on the opposite bank renewed their efforts to force their way across.
They see that their other allies have got them in the rear, and that's it. They've gone like time to go full in.
The pressure was simply too much for the already demoralized Janissaries, having been abandoned by most of their cavalry, and now pressed on two sides. The resolve of these elite and professional soldiers, the pride of the Ottoman army, finally broke.
And what a hit for the Ottoman army.
With the rout of the Janissaries, what remained of the Ottoman force shattered and fled in the wake of the Christian onslaught. The lighter units of Hungarian infantry and cavalry began running down the fleeing Ottomans, only giving up the chase as night fell. The entire confrontation had lasted at most 1 hour. The Ottoman losses during this initial clash were around 500 to 1,000, with all of their 43 cannons captured by their enemy.
They weren't. Of course, the cannons were left there. They weren't going to be able to retreat and lug those along. The losses, 500 to 1,000. That's not the worst we've seen on this channel. Definitely looking forward to. Well, not looking forward to, but I'm definitely interested to see what happens next and how they deal with this.
Negligible, with sources stating around 15 dead.
Yeah, that's got to be an exaggeration.
Although this figure may be biased. Regardless, it can be gathered that the Christian forces suffered far fewer casualties compared to the Ottomans during this initial encounter. In a report sent to the Sultan before the battle, Jafar Pasha had incorrectly estimated the Christian army to number around 30 to 35,000 strong. It is further mentioned that upon hearing the size of the opposing army, many of the Ottoman commanders began urging retreat. Jafar Pasha rejected this notion for two reasons, however. Firstly, because his force had up to that point faced few difficulties and had not yet run into any resistance. He thought it would be shameful to return to the Sultan, having accomplished so little.
I understand why you would think that, but he should have just retreated.
Secondly, he believed that victory was a very real possibility, given the favourable terrain. However, Jafar Pasha had underestimated the Christian commanders, who were highly familiar with the area, having campaigned there for much of the war. While the
that's just mistakes.
initial Ottoman plan of luring the Christian army into concentrated rifle and cannon fire was sound, it is evident that they had not expected the initial detachment of riders to hold out for as long as they did. These forward riders had not actually been a part of the Christian vanguard, but were rather sent to find a suitable campground for the main army. The Rumelian cavalry, for whatever reason, were unable to lure their enemy, either possibly due to the cautiousness of the Christian commanders, or because of the narrow terrain, which limited their ability to maneuver effectively.
So they weren't willing to give chase.
Because the Ottomans were unable to rout this forward unit quickly, they allowed for enemy reinforcements to steadily pour in, and eventually for the entire Allied army to appear. It is also possible that the Rumelians were still in the process of crossing the stream when they were engaged by the Christian riders. That would have caused a lot of issues as well. Either way, their attempts to disengage and feign retreat turned into a genuine rout at the sight of the entire Christian army. It is also important to note that the Rumelian cavalry were simply not equipped for such prolonged close-quarters combat, especially against more heavily armed and armoured European-style troops. This initial engagement further showed that while the terrain was highly advantageous to its defender, it did not guarantee success against a numerically superior foe.
I think just too many mistakes were made.
The Ottomans were also lucky that the confrontation began so late in the day, which helped them minimize the casualties sustained during the rout. However, despite this minor victory, the Allied Christian leadership understood that the Ottomans were far from defeated. The Sultan's main host still stood between them and Eger. Both sides prepared themselves for the massive confrontation that was yet to come. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, give us a like and don't forget to subscribe.
Let's see what some of these footnotes are. Oh, have we got no footnotes in this episode?
Supporting our work. And as
we do not. Should we jump into part 2 of this one, or should we go on to a different reaction? What are you guys thinking? I really enjoyed that episode, and I'm really enjoying sort of finding out a bit more about this as well.